Well, my next guest has become an unofficial guide to Northeast Florida's urban legends and how visits to some sites have become local rites of passage. Here to tell us about the art of legend tripping is Bill Delaney, Jacksonville City Council liaison and author of Secret Jacksonville, also the co-founder of the Jaxson website. Bill, it's good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote a story a couple of months ago for Jacksonville Today, which explores the act of legend tripping. First of all, explain to us what that is.
So legend tripping is a term in folklore studies. It's something everybody knows, even if you don't know that you know. But it's quite simply, it's the rite of passage where teens or young people go out to a location that is associated with some kind of haunting or mystery or some kind of danger as a rite of passage to prove their mettle. So it's going to explore the haunted house for yourself, or going out to the ghost light to see if it's real, or the murder house, that kind of thing,
Right.
and then coming back to tell the tale.
And so this is something that has actually been sort of researched and studied as a rite of passage that teens engage in. It's something that also is rooted in your personal experience. It's something that you have done, and includes some sites that people who grew up in and around Jacksonville will be familiar with. So first of all, I just want to ask you about kind of your early legend
hmm
tripping in your younger days. And a part of me thinks like, wow, in this period, your dad was also mayor, right? And so I'm guessing there was a little bit of extra, frisson when you're doing this, this sense that like you could be caught. It maybe carries a little extra weight.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But also, when he was mayor, I got to experience sides of town that a white kid growing up in the beach didn't get to see very often. And so I heard and saw a lot of these other incredible parts of town I hadn't seen before. But that made me like very interested to get in, try to learn the nitty gritty,
And keep
and that
exploring.
yeah, exactly, and that opened the door for me to hear these different legend tripping spots all over town.
And so the first one that you went to, was it the green the
Yeah, the
road
Ghost Light.
on Greenbrier Road?
Yeah, Greenbrier Road. This was a thing, and this was, again, yeah, this is 100% true. Like a lot of these are associated with these kind of wild legends. This one was real. It was on Greenbrier Road, northern St. Johns County. From the 60s to the 90s, it was very rural. It was a dirt road that connected State Road 13 to County Road 210. And every night when you would go out there, you could be sure to see the ghost light, this one spectral headlight that would seem to be coming towards your car before just blinking out of existence. And uh, it was the kind of thing that drew people from all over town. Like I didn't live anywhere near there, but I had a friend that moved out there. They're one of the early pioneers to the St. John's exurbs, and he introduced me to it. But yeah, like I was out there a bunch of times. I know a lot of other people that
And
went
saw it.
there with multiple people, saw it at least a few times without any intoxicating substances involved. Yeah,
So real deal.
yeah, it was a real deal.
And so what was it?
So there's different stories. Like, of course, like any good legend tripping spot has an explanatory legend. This one was supposed to be a headless motorcyclist that died in a horrible accident and then patrolled the road to searching for his head or to encourage people to slow down. But there were other theories that it was light for drug runners, that it was a UFO or swamp gas, but most likely, unfortunately, it was probably an optical illusion, just caused by a weird bend in the road where Greenbrier met County Road 210.
Because it did eventually go away.
That's right. So the reason that the optical illusion is the most likely explanation is because they reconfigured the road. It had this weird dogleg bend, and the idea was that the light would travel, it would be a car coming towards you at a distance that it would look like only one light, but then as it went through this bend, it would turn away from you and disappear behind the trees. And they reconfigured that intersection in 2001, and after that, the light has never been seen again.
So, as you say in your article, the truth is sort of less important in a lot of these circumstances,
That's right.
and very often the explanations are almost preferable if they're attached to some sort of horror story or some terrible incident or a UFO. And I think of that
Hmm.
with one of the examples that you draw out is the Neff House, which is a
Yes.
itself a historic building and kind of a cool spot. So you can see why people might want to wander in, but it really is this other incident that happened there in the '70s where the family discovered this crazy sphere.
Yeah. So, with legend tripping, the legend is basically like it's icing on the cake. That's why sometimes there'll be wildly different stories that you'll hear. The whole idea is it's the hook that gets you to go there and to go interact with the mysterious space. This one, the story that draws people in was a real story, but it's what that's what serves as the icing on the cake. And this is a house up in Fort George Island, out in the Timucuan Preserve. It's now owned by the National Park Service, and it's largely abandoned. But back in the '70s, it was owned by a family, the Betts family. And one day in the early '70s, after a fire, the family was walking in the woods and they found this strange metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball just sitting in the middle of the woods. And they thought it was odd enough to be a good souvenir, so they took it home. But soon they started reporting that it was displaying some strange properties, that it would roll around seemingly of its own volition, that when you played an electric guitar near it, it would hum back in tune, that it emitted a sound that would send dogs whining, and it started drawing a lot of attention.
It is actually the subject of a really cool podcast that WJCT did a few years ago. Lindsay Kilbride did this, I think it's a six-part podcast called Oddball, and if you haven't ever listened to it, it's definitely worth a listen.
It is an excellent podcast.
It is really extraordinary. And for people who aren't able to watch our live stream right now, you should go back and check it out because we're showing some pictures of this sphere and the family that found it. So this is something that has been around, as you say, for a while, but it has gained some traction in the era of social media, in part because people can kind of build it out. They can map it, they can take pictures, they can share elements and their experiences. Has it taken a new turn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that more obscure places can become a bigger deal than they used to be because of social media. There was one in Fernandina Beach called the Wiccademus Grave, and that was something that was very local. It was restricted to the local area for probably 30 or 40 years, but then once it got on the internet, people from all over Northeast Florida started hearing about it and going up there. It became a much bigger deal, and also people taking pictures. And that kind of encourages the bad part of legend tripping that can happen, which is very often when you go into the space, you perform some kind of ritual to prove you were there or to try to interact with the mystery. But unfortunately, in a lot of cases, teenagers being teenagers, that involves graffito tagging and property damage and that kind of thing. So it can be very destructive for the spaces.
And certainly there are some sites that you mentioned, including the Annie Lytle building,
That's
Public
right.
School number 4, which has been, has been the site of so many visits by young people, but has also bears the look of that by now.
Yeah, it definitely bears the scars of generations of people breaking in. That's one that's, it's highly visible. It's the old school that's on the side of 95 in Brooklyn. And, again, since well before I was a kid,
Yeah, it is.
generations had been going in there to see if the scary stories were real. They're in
The
that
legend is,
case.
well, folks will have to look that one
Yeah,
up in the article to get the details of that. It is riveting, though. Bill Delaney, thanks so much for your article. Thanks for being here.
absolutely. It's always a pleasure.